I'm with legendary Dannique Blake from London. How are you today, Dannique?
I know tonight for you, this morning for me. It's wonderful. I'm so happy to be here, and I love speaking to my friend Edward.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Now, I just want to say congratulations for all the improvements on your health. Can I ask, how have you done it? You look amazing. You're all chiseled. Your skin's glowing. What are your secrets, and can I buy some?
Well, first of all, I don't know if they sell bottles of melanin, but that's one. But no, my so one of my amazing friends, Yinka, who I think most people know through LinkedIn, she has been great with helping to incorporate fast, like regular fasting. So that's been really good. And it's been a battle, but it's a good one. I picked the right hard.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you bring up fasting, actually. I'm right into intermittent fasting because a lot of people say, Ed, you eat a lot of junk food, which I do. And how come you stay relatively healthy? I tell you what, fasting solves a lot of problems, doesn't it, Danique?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Fasting and water. Just the two things you need, and a little bit of melanin.
Exactly. Now, I was going to say, you're an amazing culture expert. You're a people and performance expert. And we've had some amazing conversations, right from, people peddling snake oil to toxic politics to you really making a change in the business world. I was going to say, what have been your crazy experiences? I mean, we've gone through some crazy stuff together, Danique. What have you encountered lately and how did you conquer the baddies?
Wow, I feel like I've gone through this journey, and the baddies, they will come and they will go, and I expect that to continue. But
Yep.
what I've actually really learned is really understanding who I am and really being authentic in my voice and understanding what I mean when I talk about diversity, inclusion, and culture. And what that looks like for me is just unity across the board.
Yep.
So that's really what I've that's the song or the tune I've been dancing to. And I respect everybody's perspective on things, because everybody has an experience. But ultimately, my goal is to unify people and celebrate differences, and really be okay with understanding who we are and what we like and what we don't like. And but then also being respectful of people at the same time.
Yeah, and I was just saying this as well, and I can say this. I mean, yeah, you're from the Caribbean originally. Is that right? You said that before. Is that your heritage, the Caribbean, right?
So I was born in the UK. My
Yep. Okay.
family, yeah. So my family are from St. Lucia, um,
Mm.
and I have some French heritage because my granddad's is French. So yeah, I'm a little bit all over. I'm everywhere. I'm all sorts of everything and all things. Wonderful, of course.
Yeah. And I'm a Persian guy born in Australia who came from an Islamic background, and the reason why I bring that up for very interesting reasons, is that I've been telling you this actually, and you know me, I love going straight for the controversial, right?
Do
Is
it.
racism against white people. It's a huge problem. I mean, you're not white. I'm granted I'm fair skinned, but I'm hardly white, right?
Yeah.
But racism against white people is such a huge problem. There's even lawsuits going on in Sydney about it. So pre-pandemic especially, I know of quite a few high-profile lawsuits that were going on for white people suing their companies for racism. And what do you think of this whole topic? It's a big issue in Sydney, especially legally.
I think racism all across the board is terrible.
Yep.
I think racism is there's so many nuances to it, and it depends on who's looking at it and how we're looking at it. I think ultimately, I just think, don't be terrible to people. Don't
Yeah.
use someone's ethnicity to make them feel terrible about themselves. We can have discussions about perceptions of privilege. We can have
Yep.
discussions about how to treat each other better, how to change systems. But when we start to attack each other based on our ethnicity, that's when that's where you have to draw a line in the sand, because you're not actually helping anything. We're actually perpetuating the behaviors that we're trying to change, which
Yeah.
just absolutely makes no sense.
Yeah, and that's a crazy thing, and thank God, and I say this so positively to anyone watching. most people have woken up to this, right? I think this is a bit of a scam going on for a while, but most people are aware of what's going on, right? Most people are aware of it. The bit I find really fascinating is that even to this day, it always finds me is that how can you cure racism by being a racist? And I couldn't agree with you more. How does taking a group of people and vilifying them based on the color of their skin, you're not going to create buy-in. You're not going to create any change in that situation, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's dependent on what we want the outcome to be. And I think sometimes it can be so easy to be angry and have and going through a grieving process, which I think many people are going through a grieving process, which will manifest or exhibit some behaviors that you've adopted from the behaviors of how, like, the treatment of other people, and that can be absolutely easy to do. And I understand it. I've had people, I've been bullied, and I wanted to punch my bully in the face, but ultimately it doesn't change the behavior. It just creates another one. So it's important to really think about how you want people to change, and nobody's going to change if they feel like they're under attack or having to be in survival mode.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree with you more, because again, I come from a military policing background, right? So I've been well trained by the government. I tend to look at things in a very warfare-like manner. And if I'm fighting for a given cause, Warfare 101 is build as many allies as possible, right? Warfare 101.
Absolutely.
And I find it, you spot on the moment you start, pointing fingers at people, blaming people from that, they become your enemies. They become barriers to change. And I think, it's when you fight sexism by being sexist, or when you fight racism by hating on white people, you're merely just creating enemies that just comes back to bite you. And I think we saw a lot of that, especially.
Yeah, I think absolutely. The thing about it is when you create hostility in people, it actually impacts the people that you're trying to save in more so, because then the people who you were trying to help become the victims, or the victims of the people you are attacking. So it's easier to I'm going to pull that back. It's not easier to have conversations. It's tricky to have conversations with people that you feel have not treated you well. It's tricky to have those conversations, but in order to move forward and find the change, it's better to have a conversation than to attack.
And I love it. And one thing I love about what you're saying is you cut through all the, I suppose, this superficial skin, gender, race stuff, which at the end of the day, I think and a lot of people don't like this, I think there's one race, the human race. I take that high level viewpoint, right? I couldn't care less about race, and it's pretty obvious in my behavior that I don't care, right? And I know that's not completely correct. However, what I love about you is you're about the individuals and the person. And that's one big thing. It's very obvious. You care about what the actual individual thinks. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how that creates change?
I care about the individual because I believe that it's a group of individuals, especially in the workplace, that create the environment. So if you have an individual in the workplace, whether they're toxic or really great or somewhere in between, that's going to create,
they're like a super racist, really toxic, or just a little bit of a racist, right?
Yeah, like whatever they are going to create that environment. And it's easier to have a conversation or decide whether or not this person needs to be in the environment or removed from the environment to improve it. And that's why I look at the individual, because it's individuals who make the room. It's not the room that makes the individual.
Okay. So let's say, and again, if you don't mind me asking for some of your industry secrets here, right? So let's say a company hires you to make it more, they got a little bit of racism going on. They want to make the place more inclusive and get along. Do you just go in there? This is what, I don't know if this is true or not, but what I would do is I'd spot the troublemakers and go straight after them. Do you tend to do that? What's your sort of secret sauce there, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I absolutely find out what the leaders decide is trouble. Because if the leaders are okay with certain behaviors, then it might not be the people that I think are the trouble who might need to change their environment.
So it might be the people hiring you that are the problem.
It could be that. It could be the people who want to create a specific environment for a specific reason, who keep people in a room. And sometimes for me, when I go into an environment, it's really finding out what the outcomes people want within their organization, and then helping people who may not feel comfortable with those outcomes to figure out where they might fit best. Because not everybody fits an environment or one particular environment, but there is an environment for everybody. And that's what I believe, even if we're creating them ourselves.
Got it. So you're saying you'll go into a company and clearly you'll see some people, let's be honest, they just don't belong there. It's just not the right company for them. No matter what will happen is they'll never fit into that environment. What would you do with those people?
Well, with those people, we'll actually determine what they want, what their goals are, what their outlook looks like, what their worldviews are, and have that discussion and really help those people to determine whether they want to spend time learning.
Sorry to interrupt. We've got Kat May Jeffrey on the line on LinkedIn. And Kat May Jeffrey, hello, Kat, we love you. Boom and spot on here. Very inspiring. Love your work. And thank you for sharing. We love you, Kat May Jeffrey.
Hi, Kat.
Yeah, there we go. Anyway, sorry, please continue. Pardon me, I'll just interrupt if people leave comments.
That's okay. I couldn't see the comments before. I was like, what is he talking about? I can see them now. So thank you.
Oh, good. Anyway, sorry, if you don't mind, I'll interrupt when someone leaves a comment. Sorry, please continue, Dannique.
Brilliant. Yeah, no. So it's really trying to help people to identify what it is they're looking for, and being okay with knowing that within some work environments you are learning, some you are earning, some of the most great ones you are doing both, and in some of the worst ones you're doing neither.
Yeah, gotcha. So you go in there, so you identify you identify the problem, you speak to those people. With the top performers that embody the company culture you want, how do you handle those people? How do you work with the top performers? Or do you even not bother talking to them because you don't need to?
No, I always think of the bell curve. So if you've got people who are in an environment and they already adopt what it is that the environment requires, they've adopted it. They can either be the cheerleaders for that environment to help people understand what the outcomes are, what good looks like, how you manage failures, how you articulate yourself, even when you disagree. They will be the early adopters of that. So there's absolutely not much that I need to really focus on with them. It's mostly probably the majority or the laggards that I would probably focus on, just to find out, like, what is it about the environment that you like, what don't you like, what do you want to learn, are you learning that, can you see opportunities here for that, and also aligning that with what the leaders want at the company. If the leaders are saying this is not something we're going to invest in, it's relaying that message in the right way, and then helping people to determine whether or not it's the environment they want to stay and learn in this leader's way, or find a leader who suits them more.
So I get the impression that quite often you're the meat in a sandwich. You've got the employees on one side saying something to you, and you've got the employer/people who hired you on the other side saying something to you. I can imagine, again, not asking for confidential details, I would never do that, but I can imagine you would get quite a few conflicts, wouldn't you? The person giving you money would be saying one thing and the staff would be saying something else. Does that happen to you a lot?
The funny thing is when I get into an organization, it's actually, there actually aren't a lot of employees who
Dannique, sorry to interrupt. We've got Bernie Davies on the line. We love you, Bernie Davies.
Hey, Bernie.
There we go.
Love you too. Nice to have you here. So we there are employees who probably have less issues with the environment. Maybe there are some issues with the developments or how they manage their performance. The ones who have real big issues with the company, they tend to be people who don't want to stay at the organization, and they are people who whatever you do in the organization, it's not going to work for them. And those are the people that I work with to find out what we can do there. Can we mend it? And if we can, what does that look like for them? And if we can't, what does their exit look like?
Yeah, gotcha. So an obvious question, but I love asking obvious, difficult questions. So let's say someone's really toxic. They're super racist. They're super sexist. They just ooze and live and eat toxicity all day. What do you do in those extreme situations? What do you do with those real extreme bell curve people that are just purely radioactive?
Well, it depends. Again, it depends who they are. If it's the leader,
Whoa. Well, actually, what would you? So, what if it's a leader? What if it's a
and
person who's giving you £5,000, right? And it's a leader.
well,
How would you
one,
handle that situation? So they've
well,
just given
one,
you £5,000. They want you to fix
yeah,
everything, and they're the problem. And the check
yeah,
quite hasn't cleared yet for the £5,000. What do you do?
yeah. Well, one, it's very unlikely that that person would hire me, and it's very
Okay.
unlikely I would work with them. But
Yeah.
if it revealed itself slowly, I would probably have most of my discussions with that person and say, I'm very much about helping people. So the money
Yeah.
wouldn't motivate me. It would be helping
Yeah.
people, and it would be helping that leader to understand that there was potentially not very much that I could do to help them unless they wanted to take the steps to working with someone who develops mindsets or helps with some sort of coaching or counseling in that way, because there would be nothing that I could do to help that situation, and I wouldn't want to.
Yeah, but I imagine though in that situation, you're a pretty persuasive, powerful lady. I imagine that what you said to me sounds so reasonable. I can't imagine anyone not listening to your reasoning. So I can imagine, let's say a leader hired you and they're part of the problem. I'm sure if you sat down with them and explained it to them, they would listen to you and change. I imagine that situation's played out for you played out for you for a few times.
Yeah, it's happened. It's played out, and they are no longer my clients.
Ah,
I I am persuasive, but I'm persuasive with the right people.
yeah, gotcha. And Bernie Davies said, "Excellent answer." That's what I thought actually, because we love you, Bernie. In fact, quick segue. Tell me why you think Bernie Davies is awesome. Let's have a quick segue into the awesomeness of Bernie Davies. Why do you love Bernie Davies, Dannique? I've got my reasons, but I want to hear yours about
Yeah,
Bernie
I've
Davies.
got so many reasons. Bernie is probably one of the first people who I could resonate with in terms of we have a similar cultural background, so Caribbean, and I
That's right, you're
love.
both Caribbean. What do you call yourself, Caribbeanians or Caribbeanians? What's the term for Caribbean?
Bernie's background is Jamaican and mine is St. Lucian. But Bernie also has travelled to St. Lucia as well. So I love that about her. And I just love that she's super supportive and she's always here cheering for especially us younger ladies who are coming up under her wings. I love it.
There we go. Yeah, we love Bernie. Thank you, Bernie, for tuning in. By the way, if you are watching, smash that like, share, and comment. Kat, May, Jeffrey, and Bernie, we love you. So I was going to ask you, so that makes sense. So let's say, so you get hired by a company, which happens to you all the time. The management are awesome, and there's a staff member that is ultra radioactive. I take it, what's the first thing you do? You just sit down with that person, go straight after them, and as you said, just sort everything out and try and see if you can mend it, or you try and move them on from the company.
So we always start off with an assessment, and we get people to have a team assessment and an individual assessment, and answer some questions. And most of our questions are going to be a mixture of reflective questions about the team, about different dynamics in the team, and then some of our questions will be a little bit introspective about how they work. And it's really helping people to identify what works in their team. And some people, it takes a longer time for them to work through it, just depending on where they are in the business and depending on how much exposure they've been given to behave in particular ways. And it's really just really getting to the nuts and bolts of whether people are okay with how they're working, what things aren't working for them, and then really finding out what is making them tick. So if they're unhappy at the company, if they're unhappy at the company, what makes them unhappy? Do they feel like they don't have a purpose there? Do they feel like they're not learning enough? Or do they just wake up in a bad mood? Like we really want to find that out first. And then after that, we can then use that data to really help the organization see which behaviors are impacting their business and why.
Ooh, just incredible. I gotta say, I love where you're going. And I gotta say, you must have done some crazy stuff. I was just going to ask you a different question. Now, you got, and I'm jealous of you guys. Well, happy for you, yet jealous at the same time. You guys went out of lockdown way before we did. I mean, in all fairness, you guys we had like a late lockdown. So you guys had your lockdown, got released, then we went into one and just got out. What's it been like for you out of lockdown? What has your second life been post lockdown? What have you done and how has things changed?
I feel like a new person. So I've had such a roller coaster journey. So when we first went into lockdown, I was like, I do not like this. I am very extroverted. I like being around friends and family. And then probably around the Christmas time where that was my first Christmas and birthday where I couldn't see friends and family, and that was rough. But it actually gave me a lot of time to think about how I show up in the world and who I really am. So I really enjoyed that aspect of slowing down. And I think without that, I would probably not have stopped to think about things like, what am I eating? Who am I friends with? How do I work? What do I love? And now I really know I love traveling. So I'm coming to see you soon, Ed.
Well, when you do, and this goes for Bernie, I said this to Bernie as well. When you guys, we'd be honoured to hold a meetup in your honour, and I hope to get to the UK soon. And you brought up something which, again, for the sake of our friends watching, we spoke about this a lot off camera. Yeah, you mentioned that you reviewed all the people you're connected to. Now, we've had a lot of toxic people in our lives that we've blocked and kicked out. Can you tell us a bit about toxic people, how they've impacted you and how you dealt with them and how good it is to not have them in your life? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so that's been quite interesting because I feel like my journey with the whole idea of toxicity has evolved. And so when I first had these experiences with trolls online.
And you were rightfully, I was saying, and in defense of you, Dannique, you were very upset, and so would I. They were saying some pretty mean stuff to you that was just, if I was you, I'd be upset as well. Like, no one's blaming you for that. It was crazy, some of the stuff that I'm saying to you.
It was upsetting because I was letting it go to my heart. And then spending time thinking about myself. I know who I like. I know who I am. I know the people around me. Like Ed has always been around supporting, and there's like people like Bernie and Yinka and Tammy and so many people around me that I'm starting to realize, like, when you are great, people want to troll you because they don't feel great.
Yeah. And sorry, I don't mean to sound like a leftist here. You know, I'm not a leftist. I'm more of a right winger. But Lassie and I are having this conversation. I think because, again, I don't want to sound like I'm a lefty because I'm not, but I will sound like a lefty for the moment. I think as well, because you're a woman of color, like because you're a woman and a woman of color, I think they tend to go after you more. For example, Lassie, who's Asian, has copped way more abuse than I have. And I think I think women tend to get trolled more, especially women of color. Is that correct, or do you think I'm off track in that thinking?
First of all, I would say I think women definitely get trolled.
Yes, absolutely.
So much more than men.
Yeah, I reckon at least 5 times. I reckon, like, I'm not just saying this because I'm just, sucking up to women, but I reckon women get trolled at least 5 times more than men do. I really do. Bernie agrees. So Bernie agrees, right?
Yeah, and I really say this because, so I think there was a conversation about Kim Kardashian being on hosting SNL. I think it's
Saturday Night Live, right?
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah.
But I know Kim Kardashian gets trolled all of the time. She gets criticism all of the time. And, we live in this world now where we're almost telling people you can be whoever you want, however you want, show up however you want. And she's doing that. She is absolutely doing that. And then she gets chopped down for it. And I was like, okay, Kim Kardashian, I think she's great. I think she's good at what she does. She engages.
Amazing
people.
lady. I actually like Kim Kardashian. Think less of me. I'm
Yeah.
actually a bit of a Kim Kardashian fan, but don't tell anyone that. I actually really
No,
like
no,
her.
I'll keep it to myself.
Yeah,
But
don't tell anyone. Don't let Bernie know. Don't tell Bernie I like Kim
we won't
Kardashian.
tell Penny.
Don't tell
But
Bernie.
the thing is whether you like her or not, she has established and time again continually shows us that she's great at engaging people, whether you're having good conversation
Genius.
about her or like, you know, she engages people, and she gets criticized for doing the thing that we want entertainers to do. And then we have something. So I thought about it and I was like, who's done the same? James Corden has done exactly the same as Kim Kardashian. He's gone from being on a small British TV show to being a host with, you know, in a very short space of time. And I don't ever really hear anyone criticizing James Corden.
Yep, there you go. Yep. Women always cop it more, and I think women cop it more. And again, when you apply the women of color filter, it just cranks up because, like for example, you know, my wife Lassie, who is obviously extremely Asian, she cops all the anti-Asian abuse as well. We've seen a bit of that. I've had a lot of anti-Asian abuse directed at me as well.
Yeah, I think I think it's easy for people to target you when they have a perception that you should be down here. And my grandma always told me that empty barrels make the most noise.
I like it. Empty barrels. So hollow people are the most noisiest.
So and so that's something I sat with, and I had to remember it during lockdown. I was like, what would my grandma say? My grandma says, empty barrels make the most noise. People who don't have very much going on will make the most noise. And they all seem to congregate to social media to make all the noise. So we'll probably likely see more of that on social media than we'll see on real life, because in real life, you have to have substance, don't you? In real life, there are real life consequences.
Well, just on that note, and you're going to like this, and I know Bernie's going to. Bernie's still here as well. Bernie, thank you. Another wave to Bernie. Just a quick intermission. Do you want to say something else awesome about Bernie? What else do you like about Bernie? Quick Bernie intermission.
Well, to be honest, I was actually inspired by Bernie to wear red lipstick today because I feel like Bernie just always looks fantastic. And I know that probably sounds very superficial, but I have to give her a nod. She's a very beautiful woman. So you have inspired my red lipstick, Bernie.
And Bernie said, no, stop. And I reckon Bernie wakes up like that. So Bernie must wake up looking like that. That's my best theory.
He woke up like this.
So, Bernie, we love your work. Thank you. And I was going to say as well, it's interesting. And you're going to like, and I know Bernie's going to like this. And to all our viewers, thank you for tuning in, like, share, and comment. You're going to like this one. So I live, Sydney is by globals. Have you been to Sydney before, Dannique? Have you ever been to Sydney before?
I've never been to any part of Australia, and I'm gutted about that.
Oh, all right, we'll get you soon. So Sydney is basically, it's like a medium-sized city. It's about 5 million people. It's a combination of like Florida. Imagine Miami plus New York full of British is basically Sydney, right? More or less. Great. You love it, right? Anyway,
yeah.
Sydney, though, is quite a small place. So quite often, even though there's 5 million people, I'll always bump into people I know just in the city all the time. Right, so I can't go to the city and not bump into a few people I know. Anyway, Now, you'll like this. I've had people really troll me badly on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
And guess who I bump into a week later in the street, right?
No.
Now, a bit of trivia for you. I weigh about 100 kilos and I'm almost 6 feet tall, and I've worked for the government. And, you know, I've got the reputation of being a bit of a nut job. And anyway, I'll tell you, do you want to know what these people normally do when they spot Edward's ear? Do you want to know? Like, let's say they know I've spotted them. Do you know what they normally do?
I feel like they do not walk towards you and say the same things they said online.
9 times out of 10, they cross the road, right? They cross the road. One even ran into a shop, and one even actually went into an alley, right? And I was sort of like looking around. And now, however, the odd one will actually confront me, and power to them for confronting me, right? And Bernie's like, I know Bernie would like this, and he like it too. And when I confront me, I'll say something like, "Oh, you have a bit of, you like your keyboard, don't you?" I'll say something like that, just some smart ass line, right? And all they do is they just apologize. I've never had a troll look me in the eye in the street and, you know, sort of ramp it up, sort of thing. I think they're just such weak people. Like
because
if they approached me in the street and abused me, I'd actually respect them for that, but they don't. So your
no,
hollow comment is
because
so accurate.
there's real life consequences, which is why I spent, you and I, you sat through some times with me and when I was being trolled, and then when I realized that exactly the same, none of these people would ever say any, and to your point, I've actually worked with a couple of the people who trolled me, as in I worked in the same building with them or in the same office with them, and they had never, anything that they've said online, never in the time of working with them had they ever said anything like that. So it just made me realize, like, people do feel brave online, and we probably have to start realizing that most of these people are they will never express themselves in that way in real life, and which is why I do prefer real life. I prefer real life because it gives people it helps people to understand that there are real life consequences.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And the beautiful thing that I think in all this one, to me, in the new world, it's all about a combination of good online and good real life. And the thing I've learned is the more we bring online and real life together, the better off we're all going to be.
Absolutely. I think when people understand that there are real life consequences for how they behave online, it will change a little bit. But these discussions are happening, aren't they? They're all happening.
I love it. Now, I was just going to say as well, thank you again for your time. I know you're busy, you've got a lot of work to do. Big thank you. Just before you go, just want to ask you a few more things. Firstly, to anyone watching, how can people hire you? And when people hire you, what's your normal process? Tell us a bit about hiring you and what that looks like. And who are the sort of people that should hire you?
Yeah, so my company is very varied. So I have different programs and models and resources for different types of people. So if you are a new woman in business and your business is smashing it right now and you're ready to hire someone, but you're not quite sure how, I have a product for you. I have something coming and it's launching this week. So that will watch this space, but I've got something for you because I do believe that the hiring and onboarding of new employees is really where people will start to understand the culture and what makes your culture great. If you're an organization who just needs something to add to their culture, I have a program for you. I specifically work with startups because I feel like startups have less red tape. So any startup founders who'd like to work with adding some source to their culture, I have a program for you. And then anyone who is already there with their culture but just needs a boost, I also have a program for them as well. And I specifically work with startups, and I specifically work with people who want to do the work, not just spend time online talking about it.
Got it. And just understand, you're based in London, you're working British hours, but you take clients from across the world?
I take clients from across the world, which is
probably
why I'm able to eat less.
There you go. There you go, which is good. There you go. And the other thing I was going to ask you as well, just in closing as well, big thank you again for coming on. If you are watching, you probably watch. If you're watching the recording, connect with Dannique over LinkedIn. If you're on the live, big thank you. Bernie's still with us. We love you, Bernie. Can we just get some closing thoughts from you before I let you go and kick some butt today?
Closing thoughts. Oh, this is always difficult, isn't it? Because I want to leave people with something profound. One of my mentees this morning said that I always say things really profound, and it's not usually it just comes out of my mouth. But what I would tell people is spend more time trying to be awake than woke.
Oh my God.
I think that's
say that again. I loved it. I love it. Say it again. I loved it.
Spend more time trying to be awake than woke. That's where I am at this moment.
And here, that's why you're so popular and we love you. Dannique, thank you for being on our show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I love speaking to you, Ed. Ed and I speak quite often and online and on WhatsApp and here, and I love that people get to see us talk to each other, because this is generally how Ed and I speak to each other.
I was just going to say as well, anytime you want to do another live, be it another interview or talk about your new launches, you just let me know.
Thank you. And thank you so much, Benny. You also rock. And I love that I know Benny. I love that Benny is part of my network.
There you go. So thank you, Dannique. Love you. Bye, everyone. Stay awesome and talk to you all later. Bye, everyone.
Bye.